Welcome into the show. It is Daniel Wortman coming to you live from the Dream Edge 8 Sports Studios. It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast, 5 a.m. out west. Welcome into the show. Thanks for tuning in on this Monday morning. There are a lot of things you could say about what happened yesterday, and I am not going to repeat all of those. The accolades, the words, the legends, the personal relationship that so many had with Kobe. It was a sad day. It was a tragic day there in the LA area as Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others perished yesterday in that helicopter accident. And the one thing for me and in all of this is, you know, I've never been a big Kobe fan. Actually, I've not been a Kobe fan at all. He and I never clicked as someone who, you know, would watch NBA games, watch basketball. And it was probably more the fact that he was a Laker. I probably would have loved him if he was a Celtic. But nevertheless, it was a sad day, but I couldn't help but think about my own thoughts about Kobe. And, you know, I loved and respected his work ethic. And, you know, he was very cultured. He grew up with his dad playing professional basketball in Italy, and, you know, is multilingual in that he's beyond English and Italian. He speaks Spanish, dabbles in some other languages. He's very intelligent, you know, person. And, you know, for me, when I look at, at who he was, one of the things that I admire about him is the fact that he grew up, you know, the son of a professional basketball player. When he got to the NBA, and the reason why to me this matters, I was actually talking to my wife about this last night. He's not a first generation professional athlete. And that to me is harder than becoming a first generation professional athlete. The reason being is that you've already made it. You may not be, you know, as wealthy because maybe your dad didn't earn as much money back then as the amount of money that's in the game now. But you knew that life, and that life probably meant some level of comfort. Maybe not, massive, mansions and all of this, but like, it's a different life. And to come from that life, come from that experience of growing up in Italy and coming into contact with the world's game, football, soccer, and this love affair that he had with the game of basketball. His dad was a basketball player. And just, he would watch these Lakers Celtics NBA finals on VHS over and over and over again. That was his, the Lakers were his team, his opportunity to go there and play his entire 20-year career in LA with the Lakers. The thing for me in looking at him, and it's actually a conversation I've had with my own kids, is, I was not, like I said, I was not a big Kobe fan for a lot of reasons, but I admired and respected what he made of himself. I mean, yes, he was talented, but the talent, people talk about his talent, but they're just now really getting into when they go back and they look at his life and his career, they really start digging into why did he reach that level. I mean, he could have been a star on his talent, but why did he reach this level? When you look at Kobe Bryant, he's the closest thing to Michael Jordan. MJ is the best of all time. It's not close. But Kobe is and was just an incredible worker, competitor, determined to win, willed himself to win. And the thing about him that I talk to my kids about is the work ethic. Over and over again, each and every day, the obsession with making yourself better than anyone else. And that's what I respected about Kobe. You know, as an athlete, his commitment to excellence. And I respect that. It's a lesson I try to instill in my kids. And we've actually talked about Kobe over the last few years and that work ethic for a while. And, watching all of the news unfold yesterday, it was just a sad day. He had turned the page in his life from, NBA superstar, one of the all-time greats as a player, and was beginning his work in media and business, in charities and other things that just looked like he was on course to put that same level of commitment to excellence into work in other areas of his life. Just a sad day for the sports world, for the world in general, and I hated for all of the families who lost loved ones in the crash yesterday. It was a really, really sad day, I think his legacy, people talk about his legacy, that can be decided, and I would prefer that others decide that. Those who are Kobe fans, who knew Kobe, they can talk about his legacy in totality, but I only really want to talk about his legacy today in terms of his work ethic, the legacy of a work ethic. And like I said, what to me made that much more impressive was the fact that he wasn't a first generation. He wasn't trying to, make it for the first time in his family. Like that's not his story. To me, it makes it even more impressive, because that is one of the most difficult mental hurdles of an athlete is comfort. I've been here a while. I'm good. I've lived this life. I've gotten to travel the world. I've gotten to learn other languages. Like, I'm a really good player. He could have come to the NBA straight from high school and, been a really good player, but he wouldn't have been Kobe had he not made the commitment to excellence, had he not been always looking for the edge, always looking for how to outdo, outwork, outplay, outthink, outsmart, outwill his opponents. And, people can talk about Kobe the man, they can talk about Kobe the father, the husband, the entrepreneur, all of these other aspects. For me, in the lesson that I instill and try to instill in my kids, and looking at, MJ and Kobe and others, is this commitment to excellence, which then, if you make the commitment to excellence, and this is the key point here, Tim Grover, the legendary trainer of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and others, talks about this. You've got to make the commitment to excellence that drives your decisions. He often says you don't have to love the process, but you have to crave the end result. It's going to be hard. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be tiresome. It's going to be painful. But you have to crave the end result, meaning I have to be committed to excellence. That has to mean more than the pain, more than the inconvenience, more than the struggle. And that's what I take away from Kobe's life. It's that part of his legacy. The rest of his story, I'll leave to others. But that part of his story should be told for years, decades, centuries to come. The man who worked and worked and worked and committed to excellence. He left an example to all players of any sport, and really of any venture in life, of business, etc., who want to do something with their life. That's the legacy he left. That's the example he left for you, which is to commit to excellence, put in the work, and never settle. Always go for more. So, sad day in the sports world yesterday. And so much so that, Kobe, because of his, unique life as the son of an American playing professional basketball overseas, and getting that opportunity to grow up and spend, a portion of his childhood in Italy. I mentioned, a few moments ago, he's a fan of the global game. He's a fan of soccer. And he was well known for that, and is a fan of AC Milan, liked Barcelona, Man City. He was a supporter of the U.S. Women's National Team. It was not uncommon for him to show up or pop into LA Galaxy matches. He was a fan of the game, and he made fans with, the biggest players in the game. Messi, Ronaldinho, Suarez, Ronaldo, Neymar, all of these, Iniesta, all of these tributes coming in, people that he's met, lives he's touched, all over the world. You could see the impact he's had as a sports figure. Yes, he's a lover of the game of soccer, but the impact he's had on athletes, they've seen his greatness, and that's the thing about athletes. You respect and admire those who excel. And for many, he was an inspiration in their own sports, in their own endeavors, the things that he accomplished in his career, the work ethic, etc., that we talked about. And so you saw these tributes come out in NBA games. They were doing a variety of things to honor him yesterday, with 8-second backcourt violations, 24-second shot clock violations. Both numbers represent the numbers he wore with the Lakers, 8 and 24. Yesterday, Neymar scored a penalty and flashed 2 and 4, and then pointed to the sky as a tribute and remembrance to Kobe. He had an impact around the world, and in the world of soccer as well. And it's just a sad day. His second oldest daughter, passed away with him in the helicopter, and 7 others. Just a really sad day, and so unfortunate. And when you have an event like this, it reminds us all, and I hope that it reminds you that we're not promised tomorrow. We should always try to make today the best day. Never go to bed with unresolved anger. Always try to find a way to make it right. Tell those you love that you love them and hug them tight. Yesterday was a reminder of those of us who are still here on earth that we still have work to do, but we don't know how long that work lasts, and we should try to make it the best that it can be while we're here. And always remember that we don't have tomorrow as a promise, but just a hope. So, sad day in the sports world. Certainly wasn't thinking when I got up yesterday that was going to be the start of today's show. But it was wall-to-wall coverage. He had a tremendous impact on the world of sport, and that impact, I think, is still going to be felt for quite some time. His absence going to be felt for quite some time, and it's definitely a sad day, just. You just wish it didn't happen. I mean, and those are some of the comments that you read or interviews you keep listening to. It's all surreal. I wish this is just a bad dream. I could wake up tomorrow and everything was fine. Just such a sad, unfortunate incident that happened yesterday. And, our thoughts and prayers to his family and all of the families of those who lost their lives yesterday. Our sponsor this half hour is Ductic Brand. They are the makers of amazing products, and you should check them out at ducticbrand.com, DUKTIG brand.com. And when you do, use promo code DWShow and you'll get 10% off of your order. Go there today. If you don't have a notebook, if you don't have a shirt, a jacket, a hoodie, beanie, they've got that too. Check out their apparel. Check out their notebooks. You'll be happy you did, and use promo code DWShow and you'll get 10% off of your next order at ducticbrand.com. We'll be right back after this. in the FA Cup, and Jurgen Klopp, with all of the fixtures that the team, the squad, have on their plate, has chosen to give guys, who are not getting a lot of first team starts in matches, some game time, which is, to me, it's a smart thing to do. But he's also been playing a lot of the kids, giving them an opportunity to play some meaningful matches as part of the first team. And so you've got some of these young guys who are not featuring very often, for the first team in the Champions League or in the Premier League. So in the FA Cup, he's giving these guys some opportunities. Curtis Jones, who scored again yesterday, giving him and others opportunities. And with that youth, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have some inconsistencies. You're going to have some mistakes. What you don't expect, or what you're hoping not to happen, is that your veterans are making those mistakes. You're hoping that they are stepping up in the moment and leading and helping bring a sense of calm and reassurance as they are on the field as well with the young guys. And unfortunately, I've been critical of him in the past, and I just am, I'm always uneasy when he's on the field because I think he's just mistake prone, and it happened yet again after one of the young guys gave up a penalty. Liverpool were leading 2-0 in the second half. Young guy gave up a penalty to left back for Liverpool, and Lovren just does what Lovren does, in my opinion, and makes another mistake, and allows Shrewsbury's striker to get past him and score the game tying goal. Liverpool not wanting a replay, and I'm sure Klopp had no intention of doing this beforehand. Had to bring on Firmino and Salah. They had several chances, were not able to convert. The game ended in a 2-2 draw, which means for the FA Cup that there's what they call a replay in their cup format. This game was not at home for Liverpool. It was away. The replay will be at Anfield. But here's the drama. And I'm glad that our federation, the United States Soccer Federation, isn't the only federation dealing with issues, because the FA, the English Football Association, which is the equivalent to the U.S. Soccer Federation that we talk so much about on this show, the English FA has a mess on their hands. They have scheduled a replay for this FA Cup tie between Liverpool and Shrewsbury to take place during the first ever winter break for the Premier League. So the week that Liverpool does not have Premier League action that weekend, the Premier League about a year ago sent notice to all of the Premier League clubs that we do not want any first team managers, players. We do not want friendlies. We do not want you doing any other competition. This is going to be a dead week. We have a loaded fixture, and it's very congested during the holidays. They're one of the only leagues in Europe that does this, where they play so many matches in the holiday season. It's kind of a tradition. All eyes are on England. They don't want to give that up. There's been a lot of talk about changing that, and I don't think that they're going to want to do that. I think what they would rather do is play that and then take a break, or take a break beforehand and then do that. Some version of that. So the compromise for this first ever kind of winter break, it's not a winter break in the sense of the Bundesliga and taking weeks and weeks off, but It is more akin to the Spanish style of winter break, where they will take 1 weekend off, which is basically gives those teams a full week off for Christmas, and then they come back usually right after New Year, and they begin play again. So they're kind of doing that here with the Premier League. So they send notice around that this is about last year, and they asked all the clubs to respect the winter break. This is Klopp talking about the letter. He says, in April 2019, we got a letter from the Premier League where they asked us to respect the winter break, not to organize friendlies and not to organize competitive games in respect of it. I have said to the boys already 2 weeks ago that we will have a winter break, so it means we will not be there. It will be the kids who play that game because they cannot deal with us like nobody cares about it. I know it is not very popular, but that's the way I see it. The Premier League asks us to respect the winter break, and that's what we'll do. If then the FA do not respect it, then we cannot change, but we will not be there. Klopp, who believes cup replay should be scrapped, will almost certainly be as good as his word. It's about players' welfare, and they need a rest. Mental rest, physical rest, he said. That's what the winter break is about. And then another competition tells us it's not that important. We had to make these decisions before because the boys have family, and the international players like Jordan Henderson, Virgil van Dijk, Jorginho, Wijnaldum, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, all these guys, they never have time off. So basically what he's saying here is the Premier League has asked us not to play. The English FA, this is me summarizing Klopp. The English FA has this silly rule where when you have a draw, you're going to play the game over again at the other opponent's home ground. Now, years ago when those rules were put in place, the fixture congestion probably was not near as bad as it is now. But things as they may be, they are congested. And I fully understand why Klopp doesn't want to overload his players. He already feels like they have a pretty heavy load to carry. They are still alive in the two competitions that matter to the club more than the rest, and that is the UEFA Champions League as well as the Premier League, which they have never won. And so one of the most storied clubs in England, with all of their first division titles, all of those came before the creation of the Premier League as the new first division, new name, new title, and therefore that's why I think it's a big priority for the club that they want to win the league. That's the ultimate prize. That is the 38 match tournament where the best team comes out on top. It is even more so than the Champions League is the most difficult title to win because it is 38 matches. It is a full season. Growing up in America and following the Atlanta Braves in baseball all those years, they were terrible. When I was a young kid, I used to go to games. There was not many of us there, and it was always a good time. It was fun to go to a baseball game as a kid, but they weren't very good. And then Bobby Cox comes along, and they start winning, and they win like 15 consecutive division titles. And it's just an amazing streak. But one of the things that Bobby Cox would talk about that people I don't think really got, because in all of that time, they only won one World Series. And so people would kind of talk about, they've had this success, but they've only won one. And the thing that Bobby Cox would talk about, legendary manager of the Atlanta Braves, Hall of Famer, is he said, look, I value winning and having the best record in all of baseball over 162 games more than a World Series. And people didn't take him serious, but he was absolutely serious about this, that it is so much more difficult to win the full season and have the best record in all of baseball than it is to win a World Series. World Series, 7 games. Anything could happen. You could have a pitcher that's your best pitcher go down hurt. You could have your best pitcher just be in the zone and just unhittable, just in a hot streak. You could have a hitter that just everything he sees looks like a beach ball and he just crushes it. That's 7 games. 162 games is a different story. And in soccer, 38 games. In the NBA, with their 82 game schedule, those things matter. When you look at the NFL or college football, yeah, I mean, that's different. You got 16 games, big deal. College football, 12, 13 games, big deal. That's nothing. That might as well just be one, 16-week little playoff. With extra playoffs at the end. That's not that difficult to get the best record or whatever. That's a different animal because they don't play that many games. But when you look at soccer, when you look at baseball, when you look at basketball, you get into that 38 and above kind of category, in the 30s, you're playing for 10 months. It matters. It's a big deal. And Klopp has prioritized this as a big deal. Like, we want this league, and I'm going to give my players who never have time off, I'm going to give them time off. We've already told them they're going to get time off. And I go back to Lovren. I mean, look, dude, you got to do your job. You wouldn't have put your team in this predicament, but they are in that predicament now. And so what Liverpool has come out and said, what Klopp has come out and said is, look, I'm not going to be there. My staff's not going to be there. None of my first team squad are going to be there. We're playing the kids, and our U23 manager is going to be managing that match. Ball's in your court, English FA. You knew the Premier League break was coming up. You knew that we were going to honor it. They had already asked us to honor it. So now we have this showdown between the English FA and the Premier League, and one of the Premier League's clubs. And we'll see what happens. The English FA does not like to bend its will or work with the Premier League and the clubs. They like to say, no, we're doing this. We've already said we're going to do this, and you're just going to deal with it. Liverpool have already had to deal with this. When it came to December, they had 2 matches in 24 hours. They had a Club World Cup match, and the day before, they had a Carabao Cup match where they got knocked out away at Aston Villa 5-0. But the kids, who are going to be the same kids for the most part that we saw in that Carabao Cup match, are going to be the same kids that are going to play in this FA Cup replay. The kids, played pretty well. They made some mistakes and gave up 5 goals. They're going to host Shrewsbury, the League One side, at Anfield, and we'll see what happens. Maybe all of Liverpool comes out and supports the kids, and it's a great atmosphere and environment, and they find a way through it. Who knows? But I expect that Jurgen Klopp, his staff, and his players are not going to be there, and it is fun to see a little bit of drama outside of the U.S. Soccer Federation. Others having to deal with it, and it is going to be something that's going to have to be dealt with. And I think in the long run, I think the Premier League and the English FA are going to have to get their act together in figuring out how to handle these type of situations. And I think the English FA could have been and should have been more accommodating back in the Carabao Cup, Club World Cup. They should do it again here, but their track record says they won't, and so it is what it is. And so that's going to be that's going to be something they're going to have to sort out. And, I mean, Jurgen Klopp's got a little bit of a shtick on this, but, I understand his point. And, I just think it's a difficult situation for all involved, but we'll see how it plays out. And, we'll definitely be watching. I don't know if you saw this. So they're the coach of a 9-year-old team in Spain. It's a Spanish junior football team. This team is based in Barcelona. They're called Sant Andreu, and who play in Spain's 4th division, received a complaint from junior level opponents Bufala de Badalona after their coach was filmed racing onto the pitch to celebrate a goal and embrace members of his team. There's video of this. You can find the video on the Twitter page of Badalona at CFBUFALA. So CF Bulala. And so his this coach runs out on the field and celebrates his goal with his kids. Very much going back to Jurgen Klopp from a second ago, very much like Jurgen Klopp and Allison, where Jurgen Klopp got fined when they had the dramatic win last season over Everton with a last-second header by Divock Origi, and they go running on. Klopp goes running out on the field, embraces Allison, and then he gets fined for it. So this manager runs out on the field, and he's like going crazy, hugging his kids or whatever. And that's a little crazy. I mean, like if this was like the championship of a playoff final and last second win, and they're just running around celebrating. I mean, that's one thing. I guess you could understand a little bit of the hysteria, but in this case, I mean, it just seems to be a goal in a match. It doesn't really say what preceded it. But to make matters worse, once he ran on the field and he's celebrating, he's picking his kids up and he's like going crazy, like with the kids. He then kicks the ball away from the opponent as they're trying to set the ball for a restart. And then he goes kind of jogging off the field. The referee saw it. Obviously, some things happened, and then a complaint was filed. The club came out with some comments that said it was a real shame to see the actions of the Sant Andreu coach. No trainer should ever behave like that. It goes against the values we are trying to teach our children. You have to know how to act when you lose and also how to act when you win. Sant Andreu apologized for their coach's actions. We understand why they might be upset by this incident. The people responsible for junior football have spoken to the coach, and the correct measures will be taken to ensure this unfortunate incident is not repeated. Bufala said they appreciated Sant Andreu's apology for the unacceptable act of the coach and called for everyone to do their part to improve the atmosphere of junior football. There are usually, when we talk about youth football, we're usually talking about parents, right? And like parents are crazy. This is something that we've had conversations about on the show before. We've had guests on to talk about parents and their relationships with clubs and their conduct. And so usually when we're talking about crazy behavior, you're talking about like, the crazy soccer dad or soccer mom. And, I've in this context, when you watch the video and you watch this coach, it's a little crazy. It's like way overexcited for a goal. Again, I don't know what preceded all of this. So I don't, have the full context. So I don't really know, but it was just a little bizarre. And really, to me, the even more bizarre and absurd was the fact he's kicking away the ball. It was almost as if like he was wanting to act like he was a player, and not the coach, not the trainer of that young group. But throughout youth football, there are issues. Clubs have their issues. Clubs are trying to figure out, how do we do what we do and do it well, make it consistent throughout our club. That's something that we're going to get into later in the week in the show about how do clubs provide a consistent environment and experience for players, for parents across their club, and what are their values, what is their philosophy, what is a club's methodology, principles of play, etc. We're going to get into some of that later in the week. So clubs have their own issues. Do they communicate well enough? Do they keep everybody on the same page well enough? Do they include everyone? Does it feel like an us and we thing, or is it us and you and them thing? And so clubs have their issues. Coaches sometimes have their issues. I've seen coaches just get wound up when a kid scores a goal and just celebrates, and not in a way that is disrespectful, but just celebrates and has a good time. They're kids. And, scoring a goal is not always the easiest thing to do. And so they celebrate, not even necessarily excessive, but the coach takes offense to it. I mean, the other kids aren't taking offense to it. His players aren't taking offense to it. But the coach is going berserko over it because he's very much not doing the same actions as this coach did that we're talking about, but very much has that same mentality where he's made it about him and not the kids. Parents have their own issues, and we talked about that on the show. Sometimes parents are, not respectful of the boundaries. And I don't just mean like the physical boundaries of the sidelines of the field, but I mean just the boundaries of, what to say, when to say it, how to act or interact with a coach or a player or club. And so we all have a part to play. We have a role to play. I've worn all of those hats, and I have a pretty good understanding of, each of those roles and responsibilities, and why, sometimes it's difficult or frustrating or tricky or this or that. And I get it. But I do think both clubs here are saying the right things, that we need to make sure that, we do the right thing for the kids and teach them and treat the game the right way to improve the atmosphere of as they call it, junior football, as we call it here in the U.S., youth soccer. We need to improve the atmosphere. And I think that's a good word as we look at, the atmosphere of these clubs, their teams, their competitions they play in. How do we handle ourselves? How do we handle how we conduct ourselves as a parent or as a coach or as a player, as a club official, a director, a referee? All of these things, work together to create the atmosphere, and regardless of where you are, where you live, how good you think it may be, there's always something we can find to do better, find to be better. And this coach, even though from afar it's a little comical and funny, I do think there are lessons there that we can learn, lessons that we can apply, and I think the idea of changing or improving the atmosphere or improving the environment for players should be, essential to anyone working in or involved with youth soccer. Speaking of improving the atmosphere or improving the environment, Charity Water is one that is an organization who improves the atmosphere, improves the living conditions for people all over the world. And the primary way they do this is by providing clean drinking water and they are changing lives. They are changing stories each and every day, and you can be a part of that story at charitywater.org. Again, that is at charitywater.org. Go there, learn more about their story and how their story can be a part of your story, and your story can be a part of theirs at charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Day after we all learned, the world learned of the tragic news of the passing of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others on a helicopter crash in Los Angeles yesterday morning. I just can't imagine, what his family's going through. All those kids that were at his tournament that he was on the way to, what's going through their minds as well. Just a sad thing. One of the things that Kobe was very passionate about, and he grew up with sisters. He had 4 daughters, one who passed away yesterday with him in the helicopter. Is women's sports. He was very passionate about women's sports. He was very vocal in his support, showing up for the U.S. women's national team. And many have talked about yesterday, as they've been discussing Kobe Bryant and his legacy, that one of the most important impacts that they were predicting he was going to make was on women's sports. That included the WNBA. And there's very, very little reason to doubt them. He was already doing things, building relationships, etc. It certainly looked as though that was going to be a priority for him. Speaking of women's sports, I came across a thread. This is at NWSL Tech Support, who put out a thread looking at some issues with the NWSL. This is the top women's professional soccer league in the United States, and it is the only sanctioned, only league sanctioned as a professional league for women's professional soccer in America at this time, the NWSL. And there's a tweet thread that talks about some of the issues. For example, that in 2019, the minimum salary for the NWSL was $16,538. And it goes on to point out that doing a little bit of comparison with Major League Soccer versus the NWSL, the MLS minimum salary that the MLS Players Association is fighting to increase is $70,250. The NWSL maximum salary is $50,000. So pointing out that the minimum salary for Major League Soccer is $70,250, which is still minuscule in global football. That is laughable. Our country, even though Major League Soccer is technically sanctioned as Division I, on the men's side of the ledger, when you're talking about money and finances in the game and how much players are being paid, Major League Soccer is financially operating at best as a third division league. When it comes to the economics of sport, it is the primary reason why the league is not high enough quality or competitive enough for players at the highest levels of the game to seriously consider while they are in their peak or prime of their careers. Because the quality across the league isn't high enough, and it is directly attributable to the fact that the salaries aren't high enough, and that's on purpose. Major League Soccer wants to basically squat on Division I status in American soccer, and by doing that, they limit everything beneath them. Now, the NWSL is a different story. The NWSL has no other league beneath them to squat on, to hold down player wages beneath them in the sanctioned league. So, the USL Championship, USL League One, and NISA are all operating underneath Major League Soccer. Now, they're not forced to pay less than Major League Soccer. They could pay more, but they obviously don't. But when you have Major League Soccer, your first division level, having a minimum salary at that mark, it's just laughable. And then when you look at the NWSL, having their maximum salary at $50,000 is a major issue, especially as we talked about the minimum salary being so small. The only workaround for that is national team players who get basically, it's kind of like a playing bonus to play in the league from the federation, and which basically has allowed them to earn a salary much higher than $50,000. But the rest of the league, if you're not on the national team getting that subsidy to your paycheck, that basically bonus that is much larger than the $50,000 max, then you're out of luck. MLS has 780 first-team roster spots, 30 per team at 26 teams. NWSL has 234 roster spots, 26 per team, 4 less per team than Major League Soccer, and only 9 teams. That number, 9 teams, is something we've talked about quite a bit on the show before. The U.S. women's national team's TV rights are sold in a package with Major League Soccer-owned Soccer United Marketing. NWSL's TV rights are not included. The NWSL gets less money from the U.S. women's national team's TV rights than Major League Soccer does. Every player in the U.S. women's national team plays in the NWSL. So what they're pointing out is the federation has picked winners and losers, and the federation has bundled its national team rights with Major League Soccer's TV rights, and given all of that leverage and revenue to Major League Soccer, and in exchange, the federation, by I've talked to several television media executives, those who have worked in sports marketing and sponsorships, and they estimate that the Federation is getting about 40% at max value for their rights. That they're basically, their guarantee from Soccer United Marketing is 40% at best of what it could be if the national team had their own TV rights. Setting aside that fact that all of that money is going to subsidize Major League Soccer, which is what that deal is. Well, I mean, let's call the deal what it is. It is a subsidy to Major League Soccer. The NWSL does not get that money for the U.S. women's national team. That money for the U.S. women's national team is still subsidizing Major League Soccer, the men's league. The MLS minimum is $48K, not $70K. The NWSL doesn't have professional reserve teams. There's no professional second division in the U.S. Try again. By the Athletics count, there are only 4 players currently signed to MLS teams who made the minimum salary when it was less than $13,000 per season. These are all quotes that were pulled out of this Athletic article talking about Major League Soccer and the Players Association and their discussions and with Major League Soccer on a new CBA. And so, looking at, some of those quotes, and then you get back to, how the treatment of those who were on the minimum way back when in Major League Soccer versus even a national team player like Jess McDonald, having to try to bounce back from pregnancy to raise a kid while making less than Wondolowski did with no childcare benefits. Wondolowski would talk about how he didn't have money and, not being able to get $40 out of an ATM without taking a fee so he can go to a bar and drink. And Jess McDonald's over here trying to deal with pregnancy and a kid and no childcare. In the case of host families, MLS host family story about how weird it was living with a woman who had a pet squirrel named Nutsy. And then you have an NWSL player living with a host family who has to babysit their kids or, deal with it, basically. So when you look at the back and forth, and you realize what's really going on here, it's a travesty. It's a travesty, not just from an equality standpoint. It's not a travesty, not only from a equality standpoint. Men's and women's professional soccer, we talked about on the show last week, West Virginia putting up an amendment to give the NWSL the same voting power as Major League Soccer, which I think is essential. It's critical. It's crucial. And it should be approved by the General Council at the AGM coming up, the National Council at the AGM coming up in February in Nashville. But it's also critical and essential for us to always remember what's really going on here with the U.S. Soccer Federation. Earlier in the show, we were talking about the English FA and some of the drama about scheduling, and that is drama, and there are things they need to get sorted out, but nothing there is on the level of what we're talking about here, where you are literally taking money that could go to support the NWSL and you are subsidizing Major League Soccer, and you are also, as a federation, taking less than market value for your national team rights to give that extra money to Major League Soccer. It's an issue. I don't like it. I have not found anyone who has looked through and studied this deal that says it's a great deal. And when I talk about those people. I'm talking about media executives. I'm talking about those who have worked in, high levels of commercial sponsorship deals in the game of soccer around the world, not just in the U.S. And it's something that, as a league, the NWSL needs to help it grow, and as a federation, we need that money. As the federation, we need that money to grow the game, to operate the game the right way. We need our national team rights going to the federation and staying with the federation, not subsidizing Major League Soccer. That is a problem. It needs to change, and it needs to change quickly. Thanks for watching the show. As always, you can watch on Facebook.com/WRKMN, on YouTube, on Twitter. You can catch me on Twitter or Instagram at Daniel Workman. DMs are open. Thanks for watching, listening to the show. We'll see everyone again tomorrow.